After harvesting all the beets out of my garden, I'm making pickled beets. Pickled beets are a great thing to use in salads. I've even put it on pizza. Oh my goodness, the inspiration for that came from this restaurant. They had this pizza called like Beat My Goat or something like that, and it had goat cheese and pickled beets on it. And so I thought that was just a fabulous idea. Tastes so good. Anyway, I recommend it. So for this recipe, I need to start by chopping up my beets, and I'll do just enough to fill 8 pint-sized jars. I like to do the wide mouth jars so I can actually reach my hand into it. I begin by washing the beets, and then I cook them until they get nice and soft. Then I remove all of the skins. If you want to see that in detail, you can take a look at my video for it. I really like the cylindrical beets because they just make it really easy for cutting. I tend to cut them about 1/4 of an inch thick. I take all of my ends and I put them in one jar. I figure if they're gonna look bad, I'd rather they all look bad together. I've tried to do whole beets a couple of times, but I just really like the versatility of being able to have the slices. It just seems to match up better for the things that I use it for. For this recipe, it's going to be 1/2 an inch of head space. So I need to make sure that I keep it well below that level. This is an optional step, but I also like to add a little bit of grape leaves in here. Now it's a little late in the season, so my grape leaves could look a little bit better, and it probably would have been a good idea to add these in here before I put in the beets, but you know, it's been a year since I've made them. So I'll just work them down the edge. So that grape leaf just makes it so that the beets stay a little bit crispier because of the tannins that are in it. If you can get them to go in nice and flat, they can actually be kind of a pretty garnish almost on the side of your jar. With the beets all jarred, it's time for me to make my pickling juice. And I start with 3½ cups of vinegar, 1½ cups of water, 2 cups of sugar, 2 teaspoons of cinnamon, 1½ teaspoons of salt, and 1 teaspoon of allspice. And then stir it well. Put it on the stove. My pickling juice has been simmering for 15 minutes, so now it's ready to go in the jars. Then I just fill up my jars until it gets up to 1/2 an inch of headspace, which is the space from the top of the food to the top of the jars. And I try to give it a good stir as I go so that the spices don't all settle down at the bottom. I want there to be an equal amount in all the jars. And if you get too much, just go ahead and take it out and put it in the next jar. It's a pretty easy fix. It's a little variable how many jars this will do. And that was almost the perfect amount of pickling liquid. I've got all 8 of mine. I've got just a tiny bit here that I'll save for later. Actually, it might be enough to do 1 more jar. So then I just wipe off the rim with a clean, damp cloth just to make sure if there's any pickling syrup on there that it doesn't interfere with the seal. Then I put the lids on fingertip tight. Then I'll put it in the boiling water bath and I'll process it for 30 minutes if I'm at sea level. But I'm at 1,200 feet, so I'm gonna go for 35. Now that it's at a good rolling boil, I'll set the timer for 30 minutes. Well, 35 for me, but if I was at sea level. Now that the processing time is done, I'll remove the lid and turn off the heat and I'll let it cool down for 5 minutes. And the beets are all done. I can't wait to eat them, but you know, I will because pickled beets don't taste good until they've been sitting for at least a month. I'll leave these alone for 24 hours to allow them to cool and seal. After that, I'll remove the ring and wash the whole thing with hot soapy water, and then I'll store it in a cool, dry, dark location